You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 145. Stay tuned. Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast dedicated to healing your heart and life following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, a twice certified life coach specializing in post-traumatic growth. If you're experiencing the effects of alienation and you're ready to heal, then this show is my love letter to you. Stay tuned. Hey, yo, what's happening? How we doing today? It is the week after the 4th of July, y'all. It has been a hectic last month really, but really last two-ish weeks. Mostly self-inflicted, mostly. I mean, always really it is, because it's just our perception of whatever's going on, right? But, it started off, I don't even know if I mentioned that my mom was in town. She came in town. The last time she was in town was a year ago. That was pretty uneventful. However, I will say that as soon as she left, I thought I was going to play catch up. And then I think the duck happened the next day, And so it's been crazy. And today I told you, I think last week, that I was going to do an episode based on the duck, which of course be brought back. I'll tie that into alienation. And I do have a lesson, just some reminders and some just takeaways from my whole experience with all of this chaos. It happens to be all centered around animals because that's just my world these days, plants and animals. I guess what I'm saying here is that I won't be necessarily speaking about alienation on the forefront of this episode, but stay with me because there is a message here, and I think an important one as it relates to you moving forward with your situation of alienation and with your life, like rebuilding your life. So I know that I had just recently talked about doing episodes in a more searchable way. This one came up. It's not necessarily one of the searchable ones that anybody's going to be looking for, like I need to solve ABC, but it's been on my mind. Hopefully it'll be useful from you guys. So there we have it. We're going to get into it. Also, before I start, so I don't forget, it would be hard for me to. I just want to say a few words real quick. If there are any of you that are in the area or have family that are in the hill country of Texas, this week has been awful for the last few days anyway. There's been severe flooding in the hill country right around where I lived. In fact, I lived in Briarcliff, Texas. It's like Spicewood. That's where the house on the hill was anyway. Otherwise, I was in Austin. But I've already heard just through the grapevine and also through friends in Briarcliff that there were some deaths even in my neighborhood because our house is all surrounded by the lake. So anyway, even more devastating is the situation around Camp Mystic. That's a little all-girls camp. Kids from, I think, 7 to 17. I don't know if that's the same one that my daughter went to. My daughter went to Christian sleepaway camp for some years in a row, and I just can't recall the name of it, but it's right around that same area. To me, it hit home because that's where I lived for the past before here for 14, 15 years, really. And because of those little girls, well, again, my little girl is not so little anymore, but it's something that she would have been doing around now a few years ago. Yeah, anyway. And so my point here is that if you are there in the hill country of Texas, or you have family or know anybody that has been affected by these floods, my heart goes out to you. Like, it'll bring me to tears. I feel it's such an emotional and tragic event that's happened there. So just want to say that you guys are in my thoughts. And if you don't know anything about it, if you're not here in the United States, haven't been hearing about it, then yes, there's been some pretty severe flooding going on in the hill country of Texas. So moving along. For those of you who have heard the last 2 episodes and are up to speed, bear with me because I'm going to take like a minute right now and update those listeners who have not heard anything about this duck situation that I'm getting ready to talk about. So a couple weeks ago, I was returning home from a walk in the morning with the dogs and was almost home. Literally, it was approaching my house, but in front of my neighbor's house. And this little duckling, day-old duckling, came waddling up to me. And my dogs wanted to chase it, right? And so, of course, and the duck went wandering into the street and then went over to the other side. I decided to come home, put the dogs away. I sort of paced for a little while because I know I don't have this set up to deal with the duck. And I wanted to see, basically, they're whistling ducks, they're black-bellied whistling ducks, and there are a bunch of them around here. So I didn't want to screw with nature, right? But at the same time, I was also worried because I happen to have I call him the feline mafia, a cat who brings home bunnies and squirrels, all the little animals. He has it down to a science. I've tried everything. I've put a bell on him, which I thought it worked for a really long time, but he's found a way around it. He's perfected the art of killing, even with the big bell on him. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation in itself, but I was worried that this poor little duck was going to be a sitting duck. So I went outside after I dropped the dogs and I found him across on my street. You know, I have one street, but he was on the other side behind a neighbor's house, jumping up and down at her sliding glass door. And I think he was actually looking at his reflection, hoping that was other beings like him. I don't know, but he was doing it pretty frantic. So I decided to grab him and bring him back home. Like I said, I was definitely concerned because there's a cat here at this house, and then there's a cat there, and then there's a cat over there, and all of them kind of wander around. So I knew also there's these big birds. Anyway, I had temporarily adopted a duck, knowing full well I didn't have the space, the time, anything to raise a damn duck, right? Plus the fact that I think it's illegal in Florida to bring in a wild bird and then raise it as your own, right? Not without getting a license and doing all the things or a permit, whatever. And I don't want a duck, right? But I also didn't want this duck on my watch to get attacked. So I brought it home. I called all the powers that be, all the wildlife people, the wildlife rescue, the wildlife hospital, humane society, you name it. And I was getting transferred around. Somebody transferred me to a place way down south that I knew wasn't going to be able to help me, 2 counties away. Anyway, I got the runaround for a week and a half. Partially because during that week and a half, I would halfway fall in love with this duck and then be like, well, maybe I could raise it. And knowing full well that I actually didn't want to raise it, but I couldn't help myself because this dog was so damn cute and endearing and funny and sweet and bossy and all the things that there were days and times where I would sort of drag my feet on doing what I knew I needed to do, right? In the end. So anyway, and even if I didn't matter because nobody was calling me back. Nobody was emailing me back. All the websites I went to and I filled out the contact information, it was for nothing because nobody returned any of the outreach that I had done. Nobody. And so I was getting really frustrated with the situation because, like I said, part of me was like, this thing is so damn sweet, adorable, and so funny. I mean, I took the funniest little videos. This duck was just, it melted my heart, But ultimately, I knew that I needed to get it either A, back with its mom, which would have been ideal, right? Or B, with a rehabber that could get Buck the duck, was what I called him, ready to get back in the wild. With each day that I had him, I got more and more concerned because he grew more and more attached to me. And so that on top of all of this stuff was sort of stressing me out. So I had like this mixed emotions as far as and thoughts, like desires, I guess. Underlying though, I really always wanted this duck to have the best life. But my plan didn't seem to be coming through the way that I really hoped or imagined that it might. Each day was getting just a little bit more and more complicated because this sweet little duck was so dependent on me. He had a set of lungs on him too. So if I wasn't right with him, he was pissed about it, which was really stressful. And at the same time, I had that other dog here that wanted to eat said duck. So it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. Well, I started to see these ducks flying over my house, and I always saw them, but I noticed more and more that 3 ducks would fly from one side of my house and then to the other side and then come back in the evenings and what have you, right? And knowing by the direction they were flying, I had a pretty good idea of which water source they were going to. It's like maybe by the way a bird flies, isn't there a saying for that? Maybe a mile away, right? Driving and walking is a bit different, but maybe a mile away, there's this couple ponds, lakes, if you will. And so my gut kept telling me that I should go drop the duck off to this one pond. But every time I went there, because when they flew over, it always seemed to be when I was sitting here like with clients and I could see them flying over. But then afterwards, by the time I could get myself together after my clients and get the duck and then take them to the pond, the ducks were never there. So I just kept missing them. And I was juggling a ton because I was still taking all my clients during the day. And then by the time clients were done, it was almost nighttime, usually 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes a little later. And then what? It was only a few hours until nightfall. And then I was going to be leaving this duck at this anyway. It was a whole situation. And the same thing with like when I had the spare time to make the calls for the duck, right? It was a lot, actually. It doesn't seem like it's that much. I'll just make a few phone calls and drive over to a pond every so often, but it was not. It was a lot. On top of that, I had a neighbor who I see him, he's pretty abrasive already, but we had, I thought, a pretty good understanding, and we're like, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Pleasantries, But in the afternoons, I would walk the duck around the house and, go feed it, and hang out with it, and spend, at least an hour in the morning and in the evenings with the duck each time. And that neighbor saw me 2 days in a row and was a complete jerk to me. Complete jerk. He was like, oh, you're raising birds now. You're raising ducks now, huh? That was just the snide comment the first time. Then the second day, he got super confrontational with me. And it really bothered me. I noticed that I was also defensive about this because I already felt like I was not receiving the help that I needed to just help me help this duck, You heard my frustration, and you heard the last couple episodes. I was super frustrated about the fact that I wasn't receiving the help from the people out there that are supposed to rescue these things. I felt like without resources. Anyway, so the second day that this guy decides to open his mouth, yapping and making judgments and telling me how not good it was that I was raising wild ducks and blah, 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 very opinionated, as if I didn't already know that stuff, right? But just, of course, you get people like in our situations of alienation that want to chime in, judge, and put their 2 cents in about what you're doing wrong, how you're being unreasonable, how crappy of a parent you are, whatever else, right? You feel like, to me, with that guy walking by, it reminded me so much of being back fighting for my kiddo and having all of the people, the public opinion, right, of all the other moms and whoever else, tell me what I needed to do to raise my daughter right? So it felt very familiar to me, and it was really icky. But I know too, now, afterwards, of course, I was fuming about this. This guy, he came at me, he's like, that's not good. And he had just had an ugly look on his face. I was pretty vocal to him, and I put my foot down. Like, I don't take any shit. Though most of the time I try to let it roll off my back because people gonna do how they're gonna do. It's not like I'm gonna change him. I knew that to begin with, but I also basically told him to go fuck himself because I didn't need to hear it, right? He can keep his opinions to himself, and he's going to voice them to me. I just needed to let him know that I wasn't about to hear it, right? But afterwards, after he walked away, I was like that, muttering under my breath, and who does he think he is? How dare he? And he doesn't even know what the hell he's talking about. And I'm trying to actually get somebody to help me to help this duck. And this guy is just fucking talking trash because he's in a bad mood and whatever because he wants to judge, right? You guys know how this goes. I know for a fact that we've all done with our situations of alienation, right? With other people wanting to look in, thinking that they know the situation and they know how to do it better. That's what was really getting me, is this guy thinks he knows what my situation was. He hadn't asked one question to me about what I was doing, what I was waiting on, why the duck was here. I mean, he hadn't asked me one question. He just wanted to, it's so easy to just pass judgment and place blame. He had no clue. And that's exactly what I know that all of us as alienated parents go through so often, is we feel so misunderstood or, unheard, what have you. I was really kind of ticked off at this guy for the next 2 days. And then it dawned on me while I was driving, that same day that I was talking about, where I was like cussing people out for cutting me off, or maybe they weren't even cutting me off. I was just in a bad mood and I wanted to be mad at everybody. I realized while I was driving, I was like, I'm actually making it a problem that he has a problem. Like, I'm taking his problem on as if it's mine, when I could actually just let him have a problem and go about my merry way and not worry about the problems he has, because truly his problems aren't my business. And that's when my brain wanted to argue with me. Well, yeah, they're not my business until he makes it my business and starts wagging his finger at me and throwing his judgments out. But even still, his judgments are his to have. And I know that's something that I experience, and probably many of you, we face a lot of scrutiny and judgment and people making assumptions when they really have no clue, And oftentimes we feel like we're the ones that are responsible for bringing them up to speed, for helping them to understand where we're coming from. But really, most of the time, that doesn't do you any good, me any good anyway, because they want to believe whatever they want to believe as it is. It's just a matter of, like, for me the other day, allowing him to have the problem and me not taking that on his mind. Like, people are going to have problems. People are going to place judgment. They're going to make assumptions that aren't correct. They're not going to hear you, and they don't want to hear you, because the story that they have, which I figured with this guy, is that I believe he was upset because he tried to do it. He had mentioned it in all of his judging comments. He was like, I tried to do it. I know. I tried to do that years ago and it wasn't good. And what you're doing isn't good. It's going to, whatever he said. So I think, honestly, he was jealous of the fact that I was getting an opportunity to do something that he never got to finish. Who knows? I don't know. Whatever. But people have their reasons. They have their stories, and they want to fulfill and make up whatever story that matches with an ending that they need to have. Do you know what I'm saying? For whatever's happened in their past. So I realized that if I just let him judge, let him do whatever, like misunderstand me, let him be wrong about me, then I could go about and focus on what my objective was, which was to find this duck a proper home, whether that be with a rescue person, right? Somebody to rehab him back into the wild, or with his mama, I didn't want to put him, I'd already made the decision, I forgot to say this, is last year, another duck had walked up to me closer to a busy road, and I did what other people had suggested that I do, which was to just go place that duck with any mama duck and babies. But then I read that that's not usually a successful route, because duck mama many times will notice that that is not her duck, and she will either abandon them or she will do worse and kill that little duck. So it's not always a great route. And for me, I didn't want to do that, because I was just basically murdering him by proxy. And I didn't want to do it. Just, I don't know, maybe that's the circle of life, but I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I felt like I was in between a rock and a hard place. Most of the problem was that I had so much noise going on in my brain. I was paying attention to that shitty ass neighbor, and I was paying attention to the fact that I wasn't being paid attention to. I felt such a victim to the fact that I had this chick walked up to me, or this duckling walked up to me. There was nothing I could do. Like, I wanted somebody to help me help this duck, or somebody to just help this duck, but it wasn't happening. I was so focused on how I thought it needed to happen that I wasn't able to hear myself and listen to my own intuition about what I knew might be best for this duck, right? And once I let go of the idea that other people needed to help me, that I needed to have humane society, wildlife rescue, wildlife rehabbers, whoever, come and get the duck from me, because that's, in my mind, I was hyper focused on that. I couldn't see the forest for the trees because I thought it was supposed to happen a certain way, you know? And then I was focused on this guy judging me. And then I was worried about like my HOA because of this guy. And I had all this noise going on in my brain, right? But when I let that go and I realized that I am making his problem about me my problem, and I don't need to do that, I was creating so much more drama in my life by allowing his drama in, which I know that we all do so often. And it can feel so like 911 emergency, right? When people make an incorrect judgment about you or me, right? They misunderstand us, misread the situation, and think that we're doing one thing when we're doing another when it comes to our children, right? It can feel so dramatic and like dire to straighten that out, because if I don't straighten that out and they think this of me, then that's going to affect this and this and this and this. And then my relationship with my kid is going to be over because whatever, right? This is how we do with all the things until we just let go of the noise. Let them do what they're going to do. Let them judge, misunderstand, because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, unless it's somebody that loves you, you love them, and you value the relationship, most of the time letting them place the judgment, say the things, whatever, is going to help you to refocus back on your objective so that you can really start to hear yourself think, you know? I used to play pool, like when I would go out to the bars. The times when I was really good, it's when I was trusting my own instincts. But the second that I started to listen to somebody else tell me how to make a shot, from that point on, forget it for the rest of the game. I could not find my own inner compass. Then I was always looking to other people to see how they were reacting by the shot that I was getting ready to make. Like maybe it's not a good one because somebody had a doubtful face. It's just a distraction. But when I didn't care what everybody else thought, and I fully knew that I could get the ball in the pocket, then I almost always had no problem making it. It's when we think that we need all the other people to help us, think for us, do for us, tell us we're doing it right, affirm in some way, shape, or form. That's usually when we get off of our game. So once I drowned out all the noise, stopped caring about or wanting to hear back from rehab wildlife people and the Humane Society, and once I realized that I needed to do this on my own, each day I would try a different route. And it had been raining like every day here for a while. And so it was actually a good time for ducks to be out and what have you. And I had just come home from walking the dogs in the evening one time, and I heard the whistling ducks. And so I always have this doggy stroller that has this little compartment, little netted compartment in the bottom. It's perfect. It's got a little platform for the duck to sit in. So I popped him in the bottom of the stroller, left the dogs here, and hauled ass down the road and around to this other block where I know that sometimes those whistling ducks are sitting up in the trees. And I played mama duck sounds from YouTube. My phone was about to die. I didn't care, so loud. And then I played baby duck sounds so that these ducks would hear. And I let the duck out with me, and he waddled. And anyway, we didn't find the ducks that day. I could swear I knew I'd heard some ducks. But anyway, on the way home, I let him just run in between my legs and following the stroller. I have a video of it, and it's so freaking funny. Maybe I'll pop it in the corner like I did with the other one. It's so funny because this duck it thought the stroller and me were the same. It was all mama. And so she would run under the stroller, like hauled ass, would run under the stroller. He did the whole, it was basically like 3 blocks home. Come here. He hauled at this tiny little thing. So freaking cute. So that was one day. That was the first day of me taking it on my own. I was like, nothing is getting in my way. I'm going to figure out a way to find this duck's mom. I'm going to figure it out. There's got to be a way. Ducks have got to be like any other mama, and they probably know when their babies are missing. And I had read that baby ducks can tell their mama's call, even though whistling ducks all sound the same to me. They can tell their mama's call from the time they're in the egg. They know the individual sounds. So I figured that maybe mama would also know. At least she would hear. Anyway, so that was day one of me doing it on my own. And I was like, all right, I can do this again tomorrow, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. I'll try different things. And so the next day, I was here at the house, and I was repotting some plants, and I had him outside with me. There had been a ton of rain, so he could swim in one of the puddles outside because I have this like little ditch. And so he went swimming. I was repotting plants. It was a lot of fun. And I thought I had to go inside real quick. And he didn't know that I left. And so when I came inside, I could see from the kitchen window, and I thought, I bet if I can leave him and he stays where he is right now, then maybe I can take this a step further. So I did. I left him outside for like 20 minutes. He stayed exactly in the same spot and peeped it out a little bit, and then went out and got him, brought him back in. And then later on that same day, I decided, all right, I'm going to do it. So I put him in the car with me, and I took him to the water source, the lake that I thought that I saw the birds flying to. Now, there were no ducks, but every time I'd driven there before, there were also no ducks because I was off on the timing, right? Because of my clients. So I put him down and I ran like hell. And let me tell you, I felt so bad because this duck was peeping at me and, yelling at me to come back, come back. And my heart was breaking because I knew that this duck was like, where are you? It just was awful for me. But anyway, I went closer to where he couldn't see me, and I started playing baby duck sounds again, really loud from YouTube. Nobody came, and I convinced myself, all right, you're going to leave for an hour, and you're going to come back after to make sure that the duck is okay. I didn't see any problems. There was a couple turtles sunning themselves, like right where I put them, and a little ibis and whatever. So I was like, it's fine. There's no gators here. There's whatever. So I left. It took everything in me, you guys, everything in me to leave. But I was like, something's got to happen. And if I'm around, maybe the mama ducks aren't going to come, And so I left. And when I got home maybe 5 minutes later, because it's not that far of a drive, right? I saw 3 ducks flying over my house, and I watched them fly that direction. There's nowhere else they could have gone, right? In my mind. So I was like, holy shit. Somehow these ducks know. Whether they heard, I can't imagine because it's far away, But I don't know if there's like a network where the birds talk, but those birds were flying right back over. So I left it alone. And the next morning I went back and I saw 1 duck and 1 baby duck sitting at that lake. I know that had to have been the mama and the baby. So I guess my moral of the story here is that, well, first off, nature is amazing and they're pretty badass. Like how that duck knew, like I was like, does the duck have surveillance on my house? But how that duck knew to go to that lake or like whatever, could they smell? I have no clue what happened. But I just decided to trust my own instincts and stop relying on the people that I was convinced that I needed the help from. And I decided to do it my way. And it worked. Whenever we're getting ready to go do something, whatever it is, whether it's you're getting ready to complete a goal, maybe it's to go back to court for your kid. Whenever you're stepping outside of the box to grow, there are going to be people that judge, that heckle you, that torment you. People are going to misunderstand. They're going to maybe slander and say things that really do actually hurt. It's going to happen when you go to do something big and different in your life. You're always going to feel resistance, So expecting that and pushing through and not making their problem your problem is number one, like I was doing with that guy. Also, too, the way that you think that you're going to get there isn't always the way that's going to work, The help that you believe that you need, especially when you're feeling a victim to the situation, the understanding that you think that you need, you're probably not going to have. And that is okay. If you can remove the distractions and the limitations you put on yourself and trust the reason why, your why, like I've been talking about in the last few episodes, trust your why and your vision and keep going ahead, knowing that the friction is there for your good. It's required for you to push through some of that in order for you to get to where you want to go. That's when you will start to feel the success. I think, people always talk about take the path of least resistance. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I also think that friction is there to sharpen us. It's there for a reason, right? It's sort of, I hate to say a test, but it kind of is. Like anytime that we face these hurdles, these challenges while on the way to getting somewhere, to achieving whatever it is that we want, or like I said, court with your kid, making a new life for yourself, following alienation, getting a new job, whatever it is, you're always going to run into problems, right? And you stopping at where the stop sign is and saying, no, I guess I'll just turn back right now. It's not working for me. And maybe this just isn't meant to be, right? That's how I used to think. Well, maybe I'm just trying to push through something that's not meant to happen right now. There are times when that is applicable and it might work for you to not try to plow through something that maybe you're not ready to do yet. But otherwise, just know that you're meant to face the resistance. It always seems to be that the second that we go out to do something big is the second that all the shit hits the fan. Just expect it. It's okay. It's meant to be there for you. It's just that sometimes we think that we're entitled to an easy road after all the heartache and the trauma, drama, all the things that we've been through. It's like, why can't things be easy now? They're not meant to be easy. But that doesn't mean that you don't go for it anyway. What if it's all just your curriculum? What if it's all just there to make you that much more badass in the end? So yeah, I guess that's it. Don't let other people take you off your game. Like you can set a goal and you can have an idea about how you're going to get there. But sometimes those ideas about how you're going to get there are what are holding you back. Like you could still get there, but maybe you have to erase all of that out of your mind, kind of like I did with this duck situation. I was expecting and thought that I was entitled to help from these organizations that are out there actually for this sole reason of helping wildlife like this, this kind of situation. But that's clearly not how I was going to get help this time. So me hyper-focusing on the fact that they weren't helping me was creating a whole extra problem on top of the problem I already had. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I had the problem of having this duck that I needed, in my mind, I needed somebody to help me to rescue or get back to his mom. So that was the main problem. But then I had a problem with the fact that these people were not helping me. So then all of my attention was going to these people not helping me, taking me off my game of trying to get this duck a home. Do you know what I'm saying? And I did this over and over and over again ad nauseum when it came to my situation of alienation. How many times did I say, well, lawyers should be doing lawyer stuff, that he should be filing these motions, he should be doing this, he should be doing that, and they're not doing it. Not to say that that isn't a problem, but also what that did is take me in circles, right? Of just focusing on the ways that people were bringing me down, as opposed to me finding ways to bring the whole situation up. You can get very easily distracted by thinking about how everything's gone wrong. Where are we going to go from here? And I know you've heard me say this a million times over. This is just another way for me to say it. So things may not be working out the way that you want them to, but that doesn't mean that you need to give up your goals. In fact, I think that that's even more reason for you to get resourceful and figure out how you're going to do it on your own, not needing all the other people to help or fall in line or whatever. I know also, like, this is just reminding me of like the money episode, the most recent money episode I did with you guys, where we think that we need the assistance, the financial assistance, because the odds are against us and the other people have all the money and we don't. And I think that that's going to waste your time. The help is out there for you, but if you're only focused on how people aren't out there to help you, then what about your goal? Focus on that. How can I get here? Where I wanted to go, where I originally wanted to go. What else can I do? It is about thinking outside of the box and really trusting your own self and your own abilities to create whatever it is that you want to create. Because you can. If you can get through alienation, you've heard me say this too. If you can get through alienation, you are superhuman. You can do so much more than you might be giving yourself credit for. So don't let other people take you off your course. Trust in your own abilities to get the job done, because you can. And other people aren't always going to believe in you. Don't let them tell you what you're capable of. My parents, both of them to this day, I mean, maybe more a little bit now, but I've learned a long time ago, and I still have to remind myself too, that they're not going to believe in me. That's just probably what they got from their parents, right? My mom is more just kind of disinterested, and my dad too. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is that they're not going to. I have to believe in me. I have to do it. I have to be the one that keeps renewing my own belief in myself and develops the tenacity and the focus. That's a big one for me, and the drive and all the things to keep going so that I can do it. And then once I get there, maybe they might believe in me, but maybe not. It's not about them. For you, same thing. Don't make it about everybody else and what they're doing or not doing. Just keep an open line of communication with yourself so that you can drown out the noise of all the other distractions, because they will be there. They will be there. And just when you think that you're on a roll, somebody will come and say something or distract you in some way and take you off your game again. Try to take you off your game again. Maybe that's not the individual person's intent, but that's basically what that test is there for, if you will. That challenge is there for. It's to sharpen you in those moments. Stay on your game. Okay? So that's how you take your power back. And I was not doing it last week, when I was thinking that all these people are supposed to be helpful and that's what they're there for. And they weren't doing anything, and they were intentionally not calling me back after sending pictures and texts and doing all the things. That's what was supposed to happen so that I could figure out a way to find this little duckling small. I didn't need their help anyway, nor did that little duckling. We did it all by ourselves. Not to say that help isn't great, because it sure is. But most of the time, whatever challenge that you are faced with, you will be able to figure it out. Okay? You will be able to find the resources. So, all right, you guys, that's all I have for you. Y'all have a lovely, lovely, lovely week. And I'll see you next week. Okay.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.